You're listening to Speaking of Supply Chain, a Miebach podcast. This is a show for logistics professionals looking to learn more about the latest innovations in supply chain. Each episode will feature a conversation on topics such as mitigating supply chain disruption and reducing risk, current automation trends, sustainability initiatives, and more. Let's dive right in.
Hello, and welcome to Speaking of Supply Chain. I'm your host, Ellen Wood. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Marius and Erik for our conversation about urban logistics. Hi, Marius. So you're a senior consultant with Miebach Consulting. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi everyone. Yes, I'm Marius Bungenstock-Siemon. I actually started my career with Miebach in the US with you, Ellen, in the office, and almost 4 years ago. And now I'm back in Frankfurt, almost for 2 years. I work in strategic projects, mainly network optimization of distribution and production. But we also do transport optimization and inventory optimization. And additionally to that, I have also started to support with the GAL Miebach Alliance. So we have preferred some material and tools. And yeah, whenever there's help needed, I'm happy to jump in and support there. And yeah, that's why I'm here today as well.
Wonderful. Thanks for joining us. And Erik, von der Vliet, did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, more or less.
More or less.
Okay.
You're with JLL Germany. How long have you been with JLL?
I'm actually quite new to jail, and hello, everybody. I actually started 1st of April. I'm now the Senior Director for Business Development for the Industrial Leasing Department in Germany. We're a small team of 5 people, and we're covering the whole of Germany. And we're also, let's say, cooperating with Miebach on a lot of projects and trying to join forces to find the best possible solution for our customers.
Awesome. Well, and we will get into kind of the partnership and the urban logistics in just a minute. But real quick, let's do something a little personal. Icebreaker. If you could travel anywhere in the world tomorrow, where would you go and what would you do there? Marius, what about you?
I might go to Patagonia. If I could go tomorrow, I would love to do that. I just saw that series on Netflix. It's about national parks around the world, and yeah, this really catch my eye. Saw a lot about alpacas, and yeah, really could see myself there in the outdoors. Maybe a little bit camping, and just enjoy whatever I could see on Netflix.
All those places that we've seen on TV. Let's make them real. What about you, Erik?
Okay, for me, it's not Patagonia. For the moment, I would say let's go somewhere where it's not that hot, as hot as it is today in Germany. So no, seriously, New Zealand is still on my bucket list. Main reason for that is I've been to Australia, never managed to get to New Zealand. And yeah, my son was there 2 years ago. So I said, okay, now I need to go there as well. Saw some nice pictures and would like to spend a bit of time over there.
Well, and I was actually talking about this with my husband last night. We were talking about where we wanted to go on a vacation next. And the biggest concern was, you know, not to visit family, not to do anything else, just to go and travel somewhere. And we've kind of got a couple options that we're liking for this fall, but we think we're going to go to the Grand Canyon and take our kids to go see that, because I've flown over it, but I've never actually gone. And I feel like that's something that Americans should see. We should go see our own national treasures like the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, your country's big enough, so.
Exactly. Now, there's a ton of places on my bucket list. I've got quite an extensive bucket list of places I want to go and see. But if I could go tomorrow, that's the next one on our to-do list.
Sounds good.
I think we all have good choices.
I like all of ours. I think we should just start planning the trips. Okay, let's get back to our topic, which is urban logistics today. So given the significant increase in demand, the demand economy since 2020 and all of this COVID craziness, everyone can relate to all these new takeout services, delivery services. I know in the US we have DoorDash, we have Amazon Prime. In Germany, I know you have Gorilla, is that right? That does grocery. So whether it's food takeout, whether it's stuff that you've ordered from, the big box stores, or whether you're getting groceries delivered, there's retailers offering delivery services sometimes as fast as that day or within minutes, within the hour. So it's not just e-commerce, it's Q-commerce, which is very different. It's not the same. What are you guys seeing in the market in terms of how that's driving the changes in supply chain?
I think, and you mentioned all the important things, the increase in demand. That's obviously what we see too, the rapid growth of the e-commerce, all the different channels of pick up in store, and all the boxes you can go to. That all leads to an increased number of shipments. And then on the other hand, at least in Europe, we have some cities where we have restrictions, and all that leads companies to rethink their delivery concepts within the city. And that's why we, together with JLL and Vliet, have conducted that study about urban logistics, just also to get our hands on the topic and see what the industry is thinking about it. And we have quite some interesting results. I think that we will talk about them.
Yes. So, I mean, it is such a hot button issue. And, how are these businesses making these business models possible? I mean, the concept of someone expecting their delivery within hours is such a shift from the traditional supply chain. So what else is in the study that we can talk about? Can you tell us a little bit more about how the study was structured and who participated in the study?
Yes, so we got around 300 participants, almost equally across retail, so a lot of fashion and food. We have 3PLs in it, and producers. And I think I might start with two questions at the beginning that were answered by all the companies. And one is, why are you thinking about urban logistics now? And the other one would be, what do you see in the future? And I think the why is because of that customer-oriented approach they need right now. So being so close to the customer, being able to deliver so quick. So really the service improvement, also to just work with the increasing expectation that the customer have, and still remain on the market. But of course, we also have all the sustainability aspects to make sure that all the environmental pollution and the increase in traffic in the cities gets reduced. So that's, of course, the other topic. So we have the customer needs and the sustainability. And then how do they want to react to it? I think one of the leading questions was, what do they see as concepts for the future? And about 70% of the companies answered that they want to have urban consolidation center and micro hubs as a new concept to being able and deliver to all those customers.
Mm-hmm. And Erik, what about within JLL? How did you guys come into this study with Miebach?
Well, JLL is working for all asset classes, and industrial certainly has, let's say, picked up some speed the last couple of years. But until, let's say, 2-3 years ago, it was all about big boxes, and now urban logistics has put quite some pressure on the let's say finding the right and appropriate asset for that kind of logistics. It's not a big box anymore. It's all about getting closer to your consumers in order to, let's say, be able to do that last mile. And what we see happening is that definitely depends on who is, let's say, executing the last mile, and that is then also influencing, okay, what kind of building he's looking for. You have the classical parcel deliveries who are blocking the streets. Then there's a lot of retailers now entering the market saying, okay, instead of consumers picking up at our store, they just want to have it delivered. They just want to have it delivered to their door. And one of the main, let's say, boundaries or requirements to that is the timing. So it's either within 10 minutes or it's tomorrow. But if it's tomorrow, then it is between 4 and 5. People just want to have it on the right timing. And that is, let's say, one of the main reasons why it's so difficult to find the appropriate location for your product in that kind of delivery. So it's really a shift going away from classical logistic companies. New players are entering the stage, and they are also trying to find new ways to get it done. So it's about
I was going to say, I recently read from a market research report about on-demand logistics that market revenue was expected to rise from 9.1 billion, which is huge, in 2019 to over 75 billion by 2030. So in the next 8 years. And it could reach that even faster because of the disruption from the pandemic and all of the things that have had to change so quickly for companies. And that's crazy, that size of change. But it really speaks to how the customer demand is really driving this change. Also, we know that the pandemic caused a lot of this to go fast, but 9.1 billion is nothing to sneeze at either. So there's a lot of customer expectations in there, and businesses are rising to the occasion, trying to meet those expectations. And I feel like that's where this study is really addressing it. But you also bring up the sustainability issue, which is another side of that coin, that their customers are looking for more sustainable companies to do business with, and companies are under extreme pressure from governments to make sure that their practices are sustainable as well, in whether it's delivering or even in production. So, and Erik, that's where JLL really brings some value to this discussion. The very concept of last mile delivery indicates that there needs to be some sort of facility within that mile close to the consumers. So the inner city warehouses, those dark stores, micro DCs. How are companies shifting to such a drastic increase in a need for those services in urban areas?
Well, what you see happening is that there's a lot of pilots ongoing, meaning companies trying a new concept, seeing whether it works, because there's nothing from the shelf, right? You need to develop it yourself, more or less, and it heavily depends, as I mentioned it previously, on the kind of player who's acting in a process. So one company is a bit quicker than the other one. And I'm pretty sure that it will take some time before we have, let's say, the right definition. For example, what is a micro hub or what is a dark store, right? You see all the things happening in cities that are now trying to ban the dark stores because they do, let's say, deliver quite some nuisance, I would call it, into the cities. And JLL can play a good role in that because, as I mentioned also previously, we do all asset classes. So what we do, we talk to our retail colleagues who are currently trying to rent out, let's say, retail stores. But that might also be an option to reuse that and put a micro DC in there, for example. That takes a lot of imagination and a lot of creativity. But that is where we want to go. That's, I think, where we need to go, because simply the space is not available, at least not in the European countries we're talking about.
Sure. So we have to make do with the space that we have.
Absolutely.
And so Marius, that's where I think you come in. So what makes these facilities that are, in these urban centers so different from any other DC that a company would use? They've got their distribution center functions, but aside from the location, what's different about them?
I mean, first I have to say, of course, I'm not the expert in the engineering, but of course, the assets we have in the city are just super small, and they still require the same kind of processes. So, for example, if we talk about cargo bikes and they want to deliver to all the customers in the city, there needs to be some kind of sorting and handling somewhere close to the city, and this micro hub or even reused retail asset could be a space for that, but it also needs some kind of engineering thoughts of how the process works, what kind of even automation can be used. So there are some players, a few on the market, who have, for example, sorting technologies for really small places. But yeah. Only this, I think, makes all the options attractive, because I think one thing that we haven't mentioned at all is that all the logistics concepts and all the pilots we are seeing in the market, they all come with add-on cost, and
That's
it,
true.
it it plays a big role for them. It's actually also one part of the study that they see the risk that the client or the end customer doesn't want to pay for it. They themselves don't want to pay for it at the moment, of course. No
No
one
one
wants
wants
to
to
pay
pay.
more.
Exactly.
No one wants to pay. But urban logistics also needs handling. Handling needs assets, and it's all coming with cost. And I think that's where those kind of automation, but also the reuse of retail assets can help to make urban logistic possible.
Okay. So we've got the space that's obviously closer to that last mile to the end consumer. We've got to try and fit all of the normal processes of receiving whatever needs to be delivered, packaging it, sorting it, dealing with it, and then getting it out. And you mentioned e-bikes. There was another recent study that I read in London that found that a single delivery, one delivery by an e-cargo bike, is twice as fast as an electric van. So you get that immediate delivery, or that much shortened delivery time with the bike, because it can get places that the vans can't. But it also emits 98% less carbon dioxide than the van. So at the city level, replacing as little as 10% of those conventional electric vans with the bikes, the carbon dioxide emissions can be reduced by up to 20%, which is so significant when we're talking about both getting things to the customer faster and reducing emissions and being more sustainable as a society and as a business. So I think especially in Europe with those regulations that are in place, but also in other major urban areas around the world, companies are being, I think, a little bit forced to make some of these decisions because they can't not. You can't just fall behind when other people are or when other companies are making these decisions, these greener decisions, reducing their carbon footprints. And at least some of the effort to create these hubs is going to address those issues. Do you guys see that as well?
So two things. Yes, they are very present right now on the market. But one thing, of course, if you have a big van and you have after that more cargo bikes, you actually increase the traffic rather than reducing it. And you need to drive back and forth. And maybe a single delivery might be faster, but there's a reason why all the 3PLs who are doing it on a daily business do it the way they do. And I think the question Erik in that phrase always has to answer: where are they parking the bikes in the night?
That's another great point.
Absolutely. So now I jump in. First, on the emission regulations, I mean, even if companies don't want to do it now, at some point they will be forced, especially in Europe. There are a lot of bigger cities who are thinking about regulations, blocking inner cities for vans, even for electric vans, giving them only a specific timing to enter the city. So it's going to be a mixture of a lot of different ways to get stuff into the city. Bikes is certainly one of them. EV vans is certainly one of them. And one of the things that need to be, let's say, part of the whole concept is really combining different companies. So collaboration will be one of the magic words, and that is, for example, one of the main reasons why parcel service in Germany nowadays they don't combine yet, they don't collaborate yet, because there's no need until the point where, for example, Berlin says, okay, you're only allowed to enter this street with one car or one van. Then that is going to change the picture. And in that whole process, to pick up the question from Marius on where do they park the bikes, that is putting the pressure on the locations, because everything which is electric needs electricity. So you need a building where you have enough charges, and that building needs to have the capacity to have those charges inside. And there will be, let's say, most likely models where you can use a building for a specific process in the morning and another process in the evening, or let's say different timings for loading your vehicles. So loading them over the night, so you can still use them in the morning, or the other way around. So that's what I meant with the creativity that is needed. And as I said, creativity is also needed in finding the right space, because it's not on shelf and it needs to be developed. And that is one of our, let's say, tasks at JLL, to convince owners, developers, that this is something which we will need in near future. And they need to think about it. So it's not just the big box outside. It will be a smaller location. And yes, there will be a higher cost, but that's I think part of the game. So that's where we're all heading, and that's where JLL is trying to play a role, to be, let's say, as early in the process as possible to understand the needs, and also trying to do some consulting on how things could look like.
Okay. Well, and you bring up an excellent point when it comes to the buildings and the facilities, not only to make sure that they have all of the utilities in place and the capability to handle the business that's going to be taking place there, but especially in urban areas and very dense urban areas, that's typically where we have our older historic buildings. And so you get into additional regulations and protection things. How does that work when you're looking at a historic building that's, important, that needs to be used for something and updated for this use?
Well, the first thing, who's owning the building? That's where it starts. If it's owned by the municipality itself, by the city itself, it might, let's say, help a bit, because if they start blocking the inner city, you can say, okay, but then you need to open up the building. If it's about another, let's say, single owner of a building, as said, it's going to be a higher cost, and that needs to be, let's say, absorbed in somehow, right? Because there is a necessity to have it, and it's all about convincing that specific owner that those, let's say, changes need to be done. And JLL can also play a role in there, because we have our own architects who are able to redesign a building according to the latest, let's say, technical requirements, to make it suitable for urban logistics, and at the same time still respect how a building looks like.
That's fantastic. And then when it comes to the automation, Marius, you were talking about the traffic isn't actually reduced. It's technically doubled when we go to some of those e-cargo bikes, and that, they're going to have to adjust how the process works inside the building in order to adapt for whatever delivery mechanism they're able to work within. And what does that look like in terms of, the different types of automation that go into that particular facility? Like you were saying, things that work in a large box DC that you can, build yourself out far away is not the way things need to flow within a building where you've got limited space. You've got a different delivery apparatus. What does that look like in terms of the automation possibilities within those facilities?
I think when it comes to cost, automation will play a big role because it's going to reduce the cost. It's also going to make it really efficient. But I think also the lack of automation right now on the market for that specific needs within the city for really small asset shows that there's still development needed. Miebach, of course, knows all the big technology players. None of them right now is in this specific area yet. But what also needs to be seen is how the supply chain needs to look like before the city. And we also discussed or already discussed, we cannot use only bikes, so we need some kind of
Right.
mix. So we need advanced route planning. We need to think about how our supply chain before the city needs to be adjusted to maybe pre-sort for different hubs within the city. So there are a lot of process changes, network changes even, and automation will play a big role once the topic evolves, I think.
Yeah, it's not as simple as just opening up a new facility and saying, hey, we're going to use this as part of the supply chain now for the last mile. It takes a lot more configuration across the entire supply chain to understand how this particular portion of it is going to address the needs of those demanding consumers that Q-commerce, and how it's going to affect other areas within the supply chain of that particular company. So that's a really great point. What are some of the top takeaways from the study that took place, from the urban logistics study with Miebach and JLL? What are some key takeaways there?
For me, the key takeaway was that everyone wants to have solutions for urban logistics, and a lot of them see the micro and urban consolidation center as a solution because they can, make the process happen to deliver to the customer as they need to. But nobody wants to pay for it. The customer, they don't want to pay for it, and at the very best, someone does it for them. So a service provider does it for them. So everyone wants it. Nobody wants to pay for it.
That sounds about right. Erik, what about you? What's something that you took away from the study?
Yeah, well, the main thing I took away from the study is that nobody really knows, to be honest. So it's a lot about try and error. Everybody, as Marius was saying, everybody is saying yes, we need to have it, but how to get there? I think that is where we are currently, and that's where we see, let's say, a lot of pilot processes being in put in place. Say, okay, let's do it for a year, and then we'll see how it works. But it's not clear yet, and that does give, let's say, a good opportunity for both Miebach and JLL to say, okay, hey guys, we think we know how it works. We do have some good solutions in place, and we would like to let's say establish a couple of good examples of how things could look. So how can good look like, right? I think that is where we're all after, and that's where we are to. That's why we are here to support that process and that development.
Exactly. It's so innovative. It's so new that there's not an established template for this is how you do quick commerce. This is how you do urban logistics. Everything is a little bit different, and everything is so new that there's not an established protocol here. So we're all kind of just winging it and playing by ear to see, oh, does this work? Oh, maybe not. This doesn't work as well. Let's try something a little bit different. So what are clients looking for when they're coming and saying, I need to, update my last mile delivery. I need to make this faster. I need to service these customers faster. I need to, reduce, emissions in some place. I need to, reduce costs somewhere else. And this is an expensive proposition. So what should companies be doing when they're in this position where they know they need to do something, but it's expensive? They don't want to pay for it. It's unestablished. It's not established that this is going to have a return on their investment. So what should they be looking for to help just provide them some security and some stability to know that this is going to work for them eventually?
Waiting for you, Marius. You were always the first one, so you can go first now.
We have an order established now.
Apparently.
Okay. For me, it's that everyone works together. So we need that collaboration, cooperation. We also need the government to exactly say what they want to have in the cities. We need to have some legal framework, some securities for companies with financial help, maybe even. And I think, the consumer, they want to have what they want to have. But they also need to understand that in order to get that, you need some kind of logistics in the city. So it's really, for me, it's all working together to get to that point. There's no one alone in that game.
Right. You can't be in a downtown area and in an urban area and say, well, I don't want these types of businesses, or I don't want these types of building usage, and then expect to get deliveries within 15 minutes. It's just not realistic. But you also made a great point about the government's participating and perhaps subsidizing some of these things, but also participating in making sure, again, with the utilities and the power grids and everything is set up so that companies can succeed at doing what they are expected to do when it comes to emissions, when it comes to servicing their customers. What about you, Erik? What do you see?
Yeah, I think the magic word is, for me, is collaboration, and it's the city, is the community, it's the company that wants to run the process, and it's at the same time also the consumer who might need to accept that not everything is for free. For example, I mean, if you see the quote of returns, for example, in Germany, it's huge, and some companies are now thinking about introducing a fee if somebody wants to send back a return, meaning the main target for that is to limit the amount of returns. Or there are going to be some services saying, okay, yes, if you want to have it on your doorstep within 10 minutes, it's going to cost you. If you have it tomorrow, it's going to be, let's say, not that expensive. And you want to have, if you're going to get it in 2 days, it's going to be for free. Things like that. So there will be a need to get a good mixture of all those kind of processes. But to come back to the magic word for me is collaboration. City, company, and for that at the same time, then finding the right spot, the sweet spot for urban logistics.
Sure. All right. Any other topics that you'd like to address real quick while we've still got some time here? All right. That brings us to the end of our episode. I gave you guys a chance. Thank you, Marius and Erik.
Yeah, no, thank you for the chance, but no, you're welcome. No, I think just let's say last famous last words.
Okay.
I think we said it all, but it is all about. I'm repeating myself. It's all about collaboration. I think that is where we need to go. And if you see what's happening around us, sustainability is not just a fancy word. It's something we need to do. Because that's I think our own obligation to get that in place, and we can all make some contribution to that. So that is that. Then I think what I would like to add.
All right. No, and I think it's great that you've both brought up collaboration, because that's exactly what Miebach and JLL do together, is collaborate to deliver some of these ideas, these innovative concepts to our clients, and not just as a theoretical concept, but as a realistic and possible solution for them that has all of the possible pitfalls already outlined, all of the benefits highlighted. So between the two companies, you guys are able to really deliver a more comprehensive solution for clients. That brings us to the end of our episode, for real. Thank you, Marius and Erik, for joining me today to talk about urban logistics and the study from Miebach and JLL. I have learned a lot. I hope our listeners did too. Speaking of listeners, if they want to get in touch with either one of you, they can find you on LinkedIn, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
And
definitely
the links to your LinkedIn, as well as the studies that we talked about and the study from JLL and Miebach, can be found in our episode description below. Thank you for listening to Speaking of Supply Chain.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Miebach Consulting is one of the largest and most globally recognized supply chain consulting, engineering, and advisory firms. For nearly 50 years, we've helped clients achieve supply chain excellence and sustainable competitive advantage across the entire spectrum of the supply chain by delivering improvements and innovation strategically, tactically, and digitally. To learn more, visit Miebach.com. You've been listening to Speaking of Supply Chain, a Miebach podcast. Keep connected with us by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. If you like what you've heard, please rate the show. That helps us to keep delivering the latest in supply chain information. Thanks for listening. Until next time.